Okay, I'm doing some prep work here for my upcoming fish trip this weekend. Thought I would go back after some big rainbows since they were such good eating. And I thought I would show what I use for bait fishing, which I don't do that often. But for this power bait rig, I thought I would explain it. This is a typical rig I use. It consists of a swivel with a piece of line maybe 20 inches to the next swivel with a barrel sinker in between. And the size of the sinker is just depending on how far you think you want to cast. I wouldn't go bigger than you need to go. After that, we're using a piece of line that's about 25 to 30 inches just to go to the hook. And if you'll notice, this is the hook I use, this size, this little teeny treble hook. This is what I was catching fish that were up to 5 pounds on with no problem. I do this for several reasons. This hook only uses a little bit of bait, and power bait's expensive, so this saves you on bait. Not to mention, the smaller the hook, the less likely it is the fish is going to feel it and spit the bait out. On top of that, this does much less damage to a fish than a larger hook, and I don't think we have really any mortality with this hook if we're very careful, as long as you don't hook them in the gills. And so it's better for the fish, it's better for your pocketbook, and I think it works without any problems because I've always caught big fish on it. Now, this rig is something that you want to tie up at home. You don't want to get to the lake and say, okay, I need to spend 30 minutes doing this. You want to be fishing when you're there, so you pre-do these beforehand, and you put them on a device similar to what I have here, where you put the hook onto it, Plano makes this one. I'm sure you can buy them off of Amazon from anyone similar to this. And you simply wrap it onto here. And when you get to the end of it, it has little wraps where you can simply wrap the line anywhere along the side of it here onto a little wrap to keep it in place. Simple. Unwrap it, click it onto the swivel on your line, cast out your fishing as soon as you get there instead of tying a bunch of knots. I recommend doing this before you go fishing. That's the time to do this. I'd make up plenty of them, so if I break any or lose any, I still don't have to tie any. I can just go to town and go fishing. One word of advice: don't leave them in the sun. Now, a bit about the gear that I use. People have been wondering what kind of gear I would use to bait fish with, which I don't do that often. This is a typical pole I like to use for that. The beauty of bait fishing is you don't need a very sensitive pole. Matter of fact, you want more of a noodly pole, like a ugly stick. I use these whooping sticks from Cabela's because they were dirt cheap and they do the job really well. I also use a special reel. I use a bait runner reel, a spinning bait running combo. What this means is it has an adjustment on the end of it to adjust this bait running feature that you engage, allows it to spool out gently without creating a rat's nest. And that the fish doesn't feel the line, you hear it going out, and until you set it or reel it and set it, it doesn't engage the line until you're ready to hook the fish. And this is a great feature when you want to set it down 10 feet away and you don't want the fish knowing you're there when he's taking it before you can get to it. This allows me to catch more fish. I really like this setup. On here, excuse me, I have a braided line. I actually use a line called Nanofill. This is 6-pound line. I usually figure it's about all I ever need, and you can cast a mile with this stuff. And just keep a swivel tight on the end of it so you can hook on your rig. And you're ready to go quickly, and you're ready to bait fish very well. When I put the rod on the ground, I use a rod holder. You can buy these if you'd like, or you can get creative with some rebar and pipe and make your own. Either way, they work well to stick in any kind of soil or sand, Hold your pole straight up so that you can see the tip and see what's going on with it. And you don't have to hold it when you only catch 8 fish a day. Now, also, I thought I would mention the other gear that I use for fishing the river. This is the pole that I use to river fish with. Now on here, this pole here is a bullwhip, Shimano bullwhip. They made these, I want to say 20 to 30 years ago. And one flaw they had with them was that the tips were very, very thin. So every one of these you see is going to have a broken tip and a new tip put on it. And they thought that that was a flaw, so they quit making the rod altogether, which was a big mistake, because nothing works like this rod does for river fishing. It has sensitivity, and yet a fish can slam this rod, and it has the bendability to give, so the fish does not snap the line or get away. So if you ever see one of these, snatch it up. You'll never see another one. The reel that I use is a Syncopate, Shimano Syncopate. For the river, I use I believe it's a 2500, yes, 2500 size. And the reason that I use this reel is not because I like this reel that much. In fact, there's stuff I don't like about it. For instance, the bail has to go clear back to stop before you can engage the line, whereas other reels will have an immediate stop, which would be better. But there is no other reel that's made with this bait casting feature right here, this quick cast feature that you just push this and you can cast and cast and cast. When you're doing hundreds and hundreds of casts a day, that's what keeps you sane. So that's why I use this reel, even though it's not the type I would really prefer, but it's the only one that has this. Now on the reel, I spool it with 6-pound Stren light blue monofilament. And I will never use another line for stuff like this, and I'll tell you why. This mono, the light blue, actually is harder to see in clear water than the clear is. So I use the light blue. And the 6-pound I found is superior in castability with the strength that I need for what I'm doing here. The other thing is I've tried other lines, like Trilene, for instance. People swear by Trilene. Well, I found that you get one little nick on a piece of Trilene and that outer layer peels off and you're down to 3-pound test just like that, and it breaks. And I've also found that it's terrible at rotting. Within a year you have to replace it. I never replace my line on this particular setup until I have so much little left from breaking and tying on lures that I can't cast farther than I want to. It just doesn't rot. It's fantastic. And it takes the nicks and abrasions like other lines don't, and the knots don't break on it. It's just been the best I've found for what I do. Now, with lines, castability is an important feature, and the less memory a line has, the farther you're going to cast it. That's why this nanofill casts so well, is that it's zero memory almost, and it has a slick coating on it with its super thin diameter that just casts like no other line. So why don't I use it on here? Simply because I'm not casting very far on the river, and the memory that this line keeps, it keeps a memory to itself to stay spooled, means I'm not going to open the bail and have it all flip off. And not only that, it slows my casting ability down. It gives me a metered effect, or a resistor effect, where I can throw it hard and it'll go a certain distance, and when I get used to that, I know just how hard to throw it to hit a very hard to hit hole, and you get used to that, and it allows you to precisely hit spots on the river that you couldn't do with a line with no memory. So yeah, it does have some memory that does inhibit your casting, but that's a plus on the river because that allows you to hit and control your casts very precisely. With lots of practice, you can hit just about anywhere doing that, and that means you're going to catch fish that other people aren't going to catch because they can't cast there. So this is seemed like a simple setup, but this is pretty complicated, and this is what I found works so good on rivers, especially the Provo River. So I'm putting this out there for anyone that wants to improve their fishing techniques. But hopefully I've been helpful. Thank you.